Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be showing you 3 easy recipes you can make with a whole chicken. These are recipes you can make with the chicken you have on hand, or even less expensive and easier, a rotisserie chicken from your favorite wholesale store. I'll be using our pasture-raised homegrown chicken for this, so I'll start with taking it out of the pressure cooker and shredding it up. This ended up being about 2.5 pounds of shredded chicken when it was done, and gave our family 3 meals plus leftovers. The first recipe I'm going to start with is a super simple chicken pot pie. This recipe doesn't require a double pie crust. It only uses 1 sheet of puff pastry. If you don't have puff pastry, you can easily substitute a single pie crust if you have one in the freezer. You can also use a biscuit mix or make your own biscuits from scratch for this, but this is a 1-pan dish, super simple. So I start by dicing a full onion and chopping up some sage and some thyme that I still have in my garden. And then I am going to melt 3 tablespoons of butter and then get these herbs and the onion nice and fragrant. While I let the onion saute for a little bit and kind of brown the butter, I do chop up the shredded chicken just so that it is in bite-sized pieces. Then I am just going to add about a 1/3 cup of flour and let this brown just a little bit. And then I'm going to mix with 3 cups of chicken broth and 1 cup of milk to make a nice sauce. Then I'm going to slowly incorporate the milk and the broth and let this simmer until it's thickened. Once it has thickened, maybe about 10 to 15 minutes, I added a couple cups of the chicken and about 3 cups of veggies, and I used whatever I had in my fridge and freezer. I had made some diced roasted potatoes earlier in the week, so I threw in the leftovers, and I also added some frozen broccoli and frozen peas and carrots from open bags that I had. Once I had these mixed in, I noticed that I wanted a little bit more substance in my filling, so I went into my freezer and I found a small amount of frozen French fries that were in there, and so I cut them up and threw them in too. You can honestly use whatever you have for this, which is why I like to make this every few weeks to just clear things out of my fridge and my freezer. Next, I am just going to roll out my puff pastry just so it's slightly larger than my pan. And what I end up doing is I actually fold down the sides, cut a couple slits in it, and then put an egg wash over the top. Then I put this into a 375-degree oven for about 40 minutes until the top was crispy and the filling was nice and bubbly. This is probably my 3-year-old's favorite meal. My husband, I would say it's probably in his top 10 as well, just because it's one of those comfort meals that is so good and so filling. Next up is, again, one of my husband's favorite dinners. I would say maybe top 5 for him. but this is something I like to make every few weeks because it is easy and we always have the ingredients. It is chicken fried rice. So the night before this, we had rice with our dinner, so I just made a little extra and put it in the fridge. It is really great to have leftover rice for this just because it's a little bit more dried out. Otherwise, you use any veggies that you have on hand. If you have any eggs, that's another protein source. And then I always add coconut aminos. I use a little bit of sesame oil, and I like a little bit of rice vinegar in mine. Otherwise, you just need some salt and pepper and maybe some garlic and onion powder. So I started by just adding a little bit of avocado oil to my pan and some frozen onion that I had in the freezer. These are small onions that I had from my garden last year. These are nice to have on hand just so I don't have to do a lot of chopping. So I get these cooked, and then I add some peas and carrots that I had in the freezer, and then I add the chicken just to get a little bit of color on it. I then season the veggies and the chicken with some salt and pepper, some garlic and onion powder, and I give it a nice stir, and then I add some coconut aminos. Once it has sauteed just a little bit, I remove it all and put it into a bowl. I just set it aside. If I did this on the Blackstone, I would just leave it on the Blackstone just because I have more room. But next, I add some butter to the pan and get the rice in there. Once the rice has cooked for a little bit in the butter, I do add back in the veggies and the rice. Then honestly, it's just by taste. So I add salt, pepper, coconut aminos. I like to add a little bit of rice vinegar. And I forgot to mention that when I added the chicken, I also added a little bit of sesame oil. But then I just keep a spoon nearby and taste test it just to see what else it needs. This is something that's so easy, and I measure with my heart. Once everything is almost done, I go ahead and add a little bit more avocado oil and add the only egg that I have. I am down to 2 hens right now, and I'm only getting 2 eggs a day. So I only had 1 here. I do have 10 chicks. So hopefully by June I'll be getting more eggs, but 2 a day is not cutting it for our family. Then I give it another taste test and I add a little bit more coconut aminos. This is something that you can use sesame sauce for or tamari, but those tend to be a little bit more salty, so I wouldn't add much salt to this. But this is a super easy 20-minute meal. It always comes together super quick, and my family loves it. Anything that has rice, my son loves. If I gave him the option of mashed potatoes or rice, he would say rice. So I added a little bit of sriracha to mine. My husband whipped up some yum yum sauce. If you've ever made that, it's like a mayo-based sauce. But this is something great, another thing with all food groups that we really enjoy. And finally, another go-to easy meal, starting off strong by using some bacon. This is just a chicken bacon casserole. So these are, again, things that you probably already have in your fridge and your pantry. So I just start by cutting up 5 slices of bacon and just sauteing these and getting them nice and crispy. Next, I'm going to dice up an onion, and I'm also going to wash a few russet potatoes and get them diced up into about 1-inch pieces. The onion will go in some of the reserved bacon fat, but these potatoes will actually go into a 400-degree oven once I season them with some olive oil, salt, pepper, and garlic powder and onion powder. These will cook for about 35 minutes until they're fork tender, and then we will pull them out and add all of the other ingredients. As the onions cook, I stir them occasionally and scrape up some of the brown bits from the bottom of the pan. And once the onions are just about done, I add a few cloves of minced garlic, and I let those cook until they're fragrant. Then I'm just going to coat everything with a little bit of flour. Once the flour browns just slightly, I add 1.5 cups of water and a cup of, in this I used half and half, and half milk, but you can use milk or half and half, whatever you have on hand. Then I added a couple of teaspoons of chicken base. I cut up some of my leftover shredded chicken, and then I just let the milk and the broth thicken a little bit, maybe about 10 minutes. Once it was thickened, I just made sure that it was seasoned with plenty of salt and pepper, and then I added my chicken to the mixture. I pulled the potatoes out of the oven and stirred it with the sauce. I added half of the bacon to the mixture, and then I used the rest of the bacon for the top. I had just a little bit of shredded Parmesan in my fridge, so I added that to the top as well. And then I threw the whole thing in the oven for about 10 minutes. I served this meal with just some steamed green beans, and it was another hit. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to spend this time in the kitchen with me. If you give any of these recipes a try, please let me know in the comments below.